Hey there, history buffs and time travelers. Ever wondered how we went from living in caves to posting selfies on Instagram? We're about to embark on a whirlwind adventure through time. The entire history of time, that is, condensed into a time frame that's shorter than your average commute. We'll be zipping past pyramids, gladiators, and revolutions. So fasten your seatbelts, here we go. Now before we dive headfirst into the annals of time, a quick disclaimer. Condensing the vastness of human history into a few minutes is no mean feat. We'll be glossing over some details, skipping a few chapters, and probably taking some creative liberties along the way. Think of it as the too long, didn't read version of history, but with more jokes and hopefully fewer inaccuracies. Our aim is to give you a taste of the major events and characters that have shaped our world, all in the time it takes for today's lunch. From the dawn of humanity to the digital age, we'll be covering it all. We'll meet emperors and inventors, explore ancient civilizations and modern marvels. So without further ado, let's fire up the time machine, engage the flux capacitor, and get this historical roller coaster rolling.
Our story begins in Africa, millions of years ago, long before iPhones, Twitter, or even sliced bread. It was a simpler time, a time when our ancestors were swinging from trees and figuring out the whole opposable thumbs thing. These early primates were pretty basic, spending their days foraging for food and avoiding becoming lunch for saber-toothed cats. Over millions of years, these intrepid primates evolved, their brains got bigger, and eventually they decided to ditch the trees and try their luck on 2 feet. And that brings us to Homo erectus, the rock star of the hominid world. These upright adventurers were the first to master fire, which, let's be honest, is a game changer. Not content with just conquering fire, Homo erectus decided to take their talents on the road, migrating out of Africa and spreading across Asia and Europe. They were like the original backpackers, except instead of hostels and Instagram, they had to contend with woolly mammoths and ice ages. Now, while Homo erectus was busy migrating across continents, another group of humans entered the scene, the Neanderthals. For a long time, Neanderthals got a bad rap. They were portrayed as brutish cavemen, but it turns out they were actually quite sophisticated. These guys were masters of their environment, skilled hunters, and tool makers. And they even buried their dead, which suggests they were capable of abstract thought, and perhaps even compassion. Recent studies have shown that Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens even interbred, which means many of us today carry a little bit of Neanderthal DNA in our genes. So the next time someone calls you a Neanderthal, take it as a compliment.
Okay, fast forward a few thousand years, and boom, we've arrived in Mesopotamia, the land between 2 rivers. We're talking modern-day Iraq, folks, home to the world's first civilizations. It all started around 3500 BCE with the Sumerians, clever clogs who invented writing, cuneiform anyway, the wheel, thank you Sumerians for our cars, and even beer, because of priorities. They built massive ziggurats, towering temples that reached for the heavens. These guys were followed by the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians, each adding their own flair to the Mesopotamian mix. Mesopotamia was a melting pot of cultures and innovations, laying the groundwork for everything from law and government to mathematics and astronomy. While Mesopotamia was rocking the cradle of civilization, over in Egypt another incredible culture was blooming. The ancient Egyptians, ruled by their god-kings, the pharaohs, created a civilization that was both powerful and enduring. They built those iconic pyramids, massive tombs that still boggle the mind, and developed a hieroglyphic writing system that continues to fascinate scholars today. The Egyptians were masters of agriculture, harnessing the power of the Nile River to irrigate their crops and create a surplus of food. They were also skilled mathematicians, astronomers, and doctors, developing advanced techniques for their time. They mummified their dead, filled their tombs with treasures, and even gave their pharaohs pets for the afterlife. Now that's dedication. Meanwhile, in the Indus Valley, another civilization was making waves. The Indus people, living in what is now Pakistan and northwest India, built sophisticated cities with impressive urban planning, complete with grid systems and even indoor plumbing. These guys were way ahead of their time. They were master traders, their ships sailing as far as Mesopotamia, and they even had their own mysterious script, which sadly we still haven't cracked. The Indus Valley civilization thrived for centuries, but then, around 1900 BCE, it mysteriously declined. Theories abound, from climate change to overexploitation of resources, but the exact cause remains a puzzle for archaeologists to this day. Talk about a historical cliffhanger. And last but not least, let's hop over to the island of Crete, where the Minoans were busy creating a civilization known for its vibrant art, luxurious palaces, and, well, maybe its parties. The Minoans were all about bull leaping, don't try this at home, complex labyrinths, think Theseus and the Minotaur, and beautiful frescoes that adorned their palace walls. They were a seafaring people, their ships crisscrossing the Mediterranean, trading goods and spreading their culture far and wide. But like the Indus Valley civilization, the Minoan civilization eventually met a mysterious end, possibly due to a volcanic eruption or maybe even an earthquake. Whatever the cause, the Minoans left behind a legacy of art, architecture, and a whole lot of questions that continue to intrigue us today.
Now let's set sail for ancient Greece, a land of sun-drenched islands, epic poems, and of course democracy. Well, sort of. Ancient Greece was actually a collection of city-states, like Athens, Sparta, and Thebes, each with its own government and way of life. Athens is famous for its experiment with democracy, where citizens, well, male citizens who owned property, could vote on laws and policies. The Greeks also gave us philosophy, with big thinkers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle asking all the tough questions about life, the universe, and everything. They debated ethics, logic, and the nature of reality, laying the groundwork for Western philosophy. And let's not forget their contributions to literature. Homer's epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, are still read and enjoyed today, thousands of years after they were written. Speaking of ancient Greece, we can't forget about their architectural prowess. The Parthenon, perched atop the Acropolis in Athens, is a testament to their skill and artistry. This magnificent temple, dedicated to the goddess Athena, is considered a masterpiece of classical architecture. Its perfect proportions, intricate sculptures, and iconic columns have inspired architects for centuries. But the Parthenon was more than just a pretty face. It was a symbol of Athenian power, wealth, and cultural achievement. But all good things must come to an end, even the glory days of ancient Greece. Enter the Romans, a civilization that started small but quickly rose to power, eventually conquering much of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. From a humble city-state, Rome transformed into a mighty empire, ruled by emperors like Julius Caesar, Augustus, and Nero. Speaking of infrastructure, the Romans were engineering geniuses. They built aqueducts that carried water for miles, roads that connected their vast empire, and public baths where citizens could relax and socialize. And let's not forget the Colosseum, a massive amphitheater where gladiators fought, chariots raced, and crowds of thousands gathered to be entertained. They gave us Latin, the foundation of many Romance languages, and their legal principles still influence legal systems today. Their empire may have eventually crumbled, but their legacy continues to shape the world we live in.
As the Middle Ages drew to a close, a new spirit of adventure began to stir in Europe. The Silk Road, that ancient trade route connecting East and West, had fallen into disarray, and Europeans were eager to find new ways to access the riches of the East spices, silks, and all those luxurious goods. They wanted to explore, discover new lands, and maybe, just maybe, find some fame and fortune along the way. This period from the 15th to the 18th centuries became known as the Age of Exploration, a time of daring voyages, groundbreaking discoveries, and unfortunately, some not-so-great consequences for the people they encountered along the way. Now, no talk about the Age of Exploration would be complete without mentioning a certain Italian explorer, Christopher Columbus. We all know the story. Columbus, convinced that the world was round, which, by the way, many people already knew, set sail westward in 1492, hoping to find a faster route to Asia. Instead, he stumbled upon the Americas, a landmass completely unknown to Europeans at the time. However, his voyages did mark a turning point in history, opening up the Americas to European exploration, colonization, and sadly, exploitation. India, here we come. While Columbus was busy exploring the Americas, another intrepid explorer, Vasco da Gama of Portugal, was making waves literally in the east. Da Gama, a skilled navigator, was determined to find a sea route to India, bypassing the dangerous and expensive land routes controlled by Arab traders. In 1497, he set sail from Lisbon, Portugal, with a fleet of 4 ships, embarking on a perilous journey that would take him around the southern tip of Africa, across the treacherous Indian Ocean, and finally, to the shores of Calicut, India. Da Gama's voyage was a momentous achievement, opening up a new era of trade between Europe and Asia, It also, unfortunately, paved the way for Portuguese colonization and exploitation in the East. But wait, there's more. The age of exploration was full of daring adventurers, and Ferdinand Magellan was no exception. This Portuguese explorer, funded by the Spanish crown, set out in 1519 to do what no one had done before: circumnavigate the globe. Magellan's voyage was a grueling test of endurance, with his crew facing storms, starvation, and even mutiny. They sailed across the Atlantic, through the treacherous Strait of Magellan at the southern tip of South America, named after Magellan himself, and across the vast Pacific Ocean. Tragically, Magellan himself didn't live to see the end of the journey, killed in a skirmish in the Philippines. However, his crew, led by Juan Sebastian Elcano, continued on, completing the first circumnavigation of the globe in 1522. Their epic voyage proved that the Earth was indeed round, and opened up new trade routes and possibilities for exploration.
Hold on to your powdered wigs, because the 16th century brought some serious upheaval. The Renaissance had reignited a passion for knowledge, and suddenly, everyone was questioning everything. Enter the scientific revolution, a period of groundbreaking discoveries that turned the medieval world on its head. We're talking Nicholas Copernicus, who dared to say, hey, maybe the Earth isn't the center of the universe after all. Then came Galileo Galilei, who perfected the telescope and saw Jupiter's moons, basically confirming Copernicus's theory and causing a major rift with the Church, which wasn't quite ready for a sun-centered solar system. Isaac Newton, that genius with gravity on his mind, literally, an apple fell on his head, or so the story goes, revolutionized physics with his laws of motion and universal gravitation. Suddenly, the universe was less of a mystery and more of a giant, intricate clock that could be understood through reason and observation. These scientific breakthroughs set the stage for the Enlightenment, an intellectual and philosophical movement that celebrated reason, individual liberty, and progress. Think John Locke, championing natural rights, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, arguing for the social contract. The Industrial Revolution, from farms to factories and smog. While philosophers wrote about liberty, Britain saw the Industrial Revolution. Inventions like the spinning jenny and power loom made cloth production faster. Suddenly, everyone could afford a new shirt. The revolution didn't stop there. The steam engine powered factories, trains, and ships. Cities boomed, leading to overcrowding and pollution. It was a time of immense change, both for better and worse. The 20th century, a century of upheaval and innovation, a wild ride of technological advancement, 2 world wars, a Cold War, and social upheaval, from horse-drawn carriages to the internet. Talk about a glow-up. The century began with World War I looming over Europe. New technologies like machine guns and poison gas led to unprecedented casualties. The Treaty of Versailles set the stage for future conflicts. In Russia, the Bolsheviks established the Soviet Union, the first communist state. World War II brought even more devastation, including the Holocaust and atomic bombings. This dark chapter led to the creation of the United Nations, promoting peace and cooperation. The 20th century saw the rise of the United States as a global superpower, the Cold War, and the Civil Rights Movement. It was a century of incredible scientific advancements, from penicillin to the computer and the internet. We put a man on the moon and mapped the human genome. The 20th century shaped the world we live in today. Now, in the 21st century, we face new challenges like climate change and AI. But history shows we're adaptable. The future is uncertain, but it's going to be interesting.
So, there you have it. The entire history of the world, or at least the abridged AI version. We've journeyed from the savannas of Africa, where our early ancestors took their first tentative steps, to the bustling cities of today, where we're constantly bombarded with information, notifications, and the latest viral cat video. It's been a wild ride, full of twists, turns, triumphs, and tragedies. We've seen empires rise and fall, witnessed incredible innovations and devastating conflicts, and met a cast of characters both inspiring and, let's face it, sometimes a little bit crazy. But through it all, one thing remains constant: the human spirit, our unquenchable thirst for knowledge, our drive to explore, our capacity for both great love and unimaginable cruelty. It's a complex tapestry, this thing we call history, woven from countless threads of individual stories, collective experiences, and the ever-evolving narrative of our species. As you've seen, history isn't just a bunch of dusty dates and names to memorize. It's a living, breathing story that continues to shape who we are and how we understand the world around us. It's about understanding the past, yes, but it's also about using that knowledge to navigate the present and build a better future. So the next time you open a history book, watch a documentary, or even just scroll through your social media feed, remember, you're not just observing the past, you're engaging with it. You're connecting with the billions of people who came before you, who lived, loved, fought, dreamed, and ultimately shaped the world we inherit today. Stay curious, my friends. Keep asking questions and never stop exploring the rich tapestry of human history. Because as we've learned on our whirlwind adventure through time, the story is far from over. In fact, it's just getting started, and you, my friend, are a part of it.